On this week's episode of the QC Step podcast, I'm going to talk with you about resumes. What are they? Should you create one? What should you put on it? And how should you turn it in to an employer? I will address all of these questions, and I will answer a few questions sent in from a student on drug testing. It's the week of November 18th through the 22nd, and this is the QC Step podcast. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the QC Step podcast. I'm Corey Finneran. You can like QC Step on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you should connect with us on there if you would like information on employment throughout the week. I post tips, links to articles, and other information on our social network accounts. Connect with us by going to qcstep.com/Facebook, and we are at QC Step on Twitter and Instagram. If you're not on the QC Step mailing list and you would like to receive emails to let you know when podcast episodes are posted and other news on qcstep.com and the podcast, you can sign up on the right side of our website. Before we get started, I know that some high school classes down in the Pekin area watch this podcast, and I want to let anyone know that may have been affected or have family and friends that were affected by the tornado on Sunday that they're in our thoughts. I typically give job leads at this point of the podcast, but I'm going to try putting job leads at the end of the episode for the next few weeks. So if you're interested in the job leads, be sure to stick around until the end of this episode. I want to answer a question that was submitted on our Facebook page. Isaiah says, I have a drug test tomorrow. After the test, what happens? After that, do I get the job or do I come in for a third interview? How should I dress for the drug test? First off, Isaiah, congratulations on getting this far in the process. You're almost there. If you have been given a drug test, you probably have the position. A business would not pay for you to get tested if they didn't plan on offering you the job. I would be surprised if they had you come in for a third interview. If you have the test and you haven't heard back from the employer in about 3 days, I would call to check on the status of everything. As far as what to wear, I would dress up a little. Clean jeans with no holes and rips and an appropriate shirt, that would be fine. But you could also wear your interview clothes and that'd be just fine too. Again, it's great to hear that you've gotten this far in the interview process, Isaiah. If you have questions that you would like answered on the podcast, you can tweet them to me, post them on our Facebook page, or email them to me, info@qcstep.com. And if you'd like to remain anonymous with your questions, that's fine. I don't have to use your name. I know that some of you have employment questions, and you're probably not the only ones with that question. I would guess that there are a lot of other students in the same position that have those same questions. A while back, Mrs. Gresch at Sherrard High School suggested that I talk about resumes. I got wrapped up in the episodes on seasonal employment and the episodes on the day of transition, and I kind of neglected this topic suggestion. This episode is going to be a little bit longer. I could have broken this topic up into 2 episodes, but I won't be doing an episode next week because of Thanksgiving, and it would probably be better to keep all of this discussion together rather than having you wait 2 weeks for the rest of it. Resumes, I think that they're a bit of a mystery for high school students. Some of you may not even know what a resume is. The definition of a resume is a brief account of one's personal or work experience and qualifications, often submitted with an employment application. So basically, it's most of the information that you would put on the resume. But one of the advantages of doing a resume is that it allows you to highlight the things in the order that you want. Let's say that you're applying for your first job, so you don't have much work experience, but you're involved with a lot of activities at school, or you have recognitions like perfect attendance at school. And those are things that may not be on the job application at all, or if they are, not until the very end. Job applications are created to focus on work experience. So by creating a resume, you're able to direct attention and highlight the things that you want, which are your strengths. If you weren't sure what a resume is, you probably aren't sure what a resume looks like. So here's a few sample resumes. This one is a traditional style resume. As you can see here, Madeline feels that her strength is in education, so she puts her education at the top of the resume. She also got good grades, and so she features that on the resume. Let's say that she didn't get good grades. She could have simply just left off her grade point average off that resume. And again, that's the advantage of resumes. You can craft them to your strengths. You can see that she features the courses that are related to the job that she's applying for. If your strengths are in things related to school, like attendance or grades or extracurricular activities, you would put the education at the top of the resume. If you're in a work program class like STEP, then you would want to put that as a related course. It would show potential employers that you are interested in work. And an employer might assume that someone in a work class at school might make a more dedicated employee. So that is a more traditional style of resume. And here's a newer style of resume. It's a little bit more eye-catching. And a resume like this would have the same information, but just designed differently. The type of resume you use may depend on what type of business you're applying with. Since I'm interested in social media, I would check to see if that company has a social media presence, both at the corporate and the local level. If they do, they would probably recognize the creativity in a resume designed like this. The age of the hiring manager also might influence what type of design you use, so do your research. If you went into the store or the business to pick up the application, you could do something like asking for the hiring manager to introduce yourself to them and get a feel for what type of a person they are. If you do this, make sure that you're dressed appropriately though, because that would be the manager's first impression of you. So those are just a few styles of resumes. There are tons of templates out there, and most word processing programs have templates for you to use. A template is a document that has already been created and formatted, and all you need to do is enter your information. You can also Google resume templates to find others. If you're interested in creating a resume and you're having trouble finding a good template for you, then contact me through Facebook, Twitter, or email, and I can try to help you by finding the right template. Now that you know what a resume is, let's look at probably the most confusing aspect of resumes, should you create one. If you were at the Day of Transition conference and you were there for the employer panel at the end of the day, you heard Lisa Johnson from the Silvis Dairy Queen say that she moves applications that have resumes attached to the top of the pile. I've said this before, but if you're applying for a job, then you want to give yourself every opportunity and advantage to get that job. If creating a resume gives you an advantage, then do it. However, I think that there are times that you should not do a resume. If you literally have nothing to put on your resume, you don't have good attendance at school, your grades aren't that great, you aren't involved with any curricular activities, and you just don't have anything to brag about with your school stuff, and you don't have any work history, you haven't done any volunteer work, you haven't helped any people in the neighborhood, then you haven't helped at your church, for example. If you haven't done anything and you don't have anything to put on your resume, then don't do it. If you're in that situation, my suggestion is do stuff to fill up the resume. Get perfect attendance for a quarter at school. Get involved with a club or an activity at school. Do some volunteer work. If you don't have anything to put on your resume and you want to do some volunteer work, Gary Carey and I can help you find somewhere to volunteer. Get a hold of me through Facebook, Twitter, or email, and I will find a volunteer situation for you to get some experience for your resume. So my opinion is if you have anything to put on your resume, you should do one. Lisa from Dairy Queen said that even if it's for the most entry-level position, she will move applications with resumes to the top of the pile. So if there is something that you can do to put yourself at the top of the list, why would you not do it? The next thing I want to look at is how to turn a resume in. So we will look at this topic with paper applications and online applications. First, paper applications. This is the most traditional style of application, and resumes in general are designed to be turned in with paper applications. So to turn in a resume with a paper application, simply attach the resume to the application. Attach it with a paper clip, not a staple. And when you put them together, put the application on top. And just a reminder, when you turn in the application, ask to speak with the manager. You spent a lot of time on that application or resume, so you want to make sure that it gets into the hands of the right person. Dress appropriately and ask for the hiring manager and tell them that which position you're applying for, and let them know that your resume is attached to the application and that you look forward to hearing from them. That's my suggestion on how to turn in a resume with a paper application. Now things get a little bit more cloudy with online applications. Some job applications allow you to electronically attach your resume. You don't see this option very often, but I have seen it before. Most of the time, you aren't given that opportunity, which I think is actually a good thing. I think that online applications are pretty impersonal, and you're just a name on the screen for a hiring manager. Having a resume gives you the perfect excuse to put yourself in front of that hiring manager. Maybe wait until the day after you submit the online application, dress for an interview, and then take your resume into the business. Ask to speak with the hiring manager and tell them that you submitted an application online and that you want to give them your application. I think that you can really use this situation for your advantage. You will be showing effort and initiative not by just applying, but by taking the time to go into the business, introduce yourself, and give them your resume. One last thing on resumes. If you create a resume, have a few people look it over. You don't want any typos or formatting errors. Show it to a teacher, a parent, an older sibling. It would not be good to just take the time to create this resume and then turn it in with an error. A potential employer may see that as you rushing through and not checking over your work. You want a resume to highlight your strengths and your abilities, not show that you're careless with details. I hope that I've answered your questions on what resumes are, should you create one, what should you put on it, and how should you turn it in to an employer. If you would like help creating a resume, like I said before, contact me through Facebook, Twitter, or email. And if you have other questions about resumes or any other aspect of employment, send those to me and I will answer them on the podcast, like I did with Isaiah's questions. Thanks to Mrs. Gresch at Sherrard for sending me this topic suggestion. Do I think the information and the content on your resume will get you a job? Probably not. It's the same information that's on the application. But do I think that taking the time to showcase your skills by developing a resume will that help you get a job? Absolutely. Hiring managers have said that it makes a difference. And like I said, if you're applying and you want that job, then you should do everything you can to give yourself every advantage in the whole hiring process. And developing a resume is an advantage that you should not pass up. Like I said before, I'm going to try putting the job leads towards the end of the episodes here for the next few weeks, because I'd like to jump right in with our topics. I post job leads on qcstep.com on Monday mornings, and if you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, I share them on there too. Every job lead I give you today has an online application, and they are linked on qcstep.com under the post Job Leads, November 18th, 2013. There are 2 Hy-Vee food stores that are hiring. The store in Moline on Avenue of the Cities and the Silva store are both hiring deli clerks, and they're both hiring bakery clerks. You need to be 18 for the bakery clerk position. Panera Bread in Davenport, they're hiring all positions. UPS in Milan is hiring package handlers, and JCPenney in Moline is hiring support specialists. If you would like help with these applications or any others, Gary or Carrie can meet with you in your school to help you. You can connect with them through your STEP or co-op teacher, or you can email me, info@qcstep.com, and I will pass it along to them. I'm sure that you're noticing the numbers of job leads dwindling and things are really going to drop off, but that doesn't mean that businesses aren't hiring. I say this all the time, but I only give the job leads that I know about. There are other businesses that are hiring, and I rarely give job leads on fast food businesses. And these businesses have very high turnover, and they're hiring almost all of the time. Also, if you're working a job and the business that you're working for is hiring and you would like to share that information, you can go to qcstep.com and fill out the Submit Job Lead form on the right side of the page. Well, that does it for this week's episode. I hope that I've answered some of your questions about resumes. We won't have a podcast episode for you next week because of Thanksgiving, but I will be putting up job leads on Monday morning. Everyone have a nice and safe holiday, and I will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of the QC Step Podcast.